Have you ever stood in the quiet hum of your own life, amidst the flurry of your achievements and the sting of your failures, and felt a peculiar stillness? A sense that no matter how much you fill your days with noise, with ambition, with laughter, there remains an unnamed vacancy, a faint echo from the deepest chambers of your soul. It is not the emptiness of defeat, but rather a sacred waiting, a yearning for something you cannot quite name. It is the feeling of standing before a locked door, certain that the answer to everything lies behind it, yet you possess no key. Do you feel it? That subtle but persistent space that whispers to you in the dead of night, that questions you in the reflection of the mirror, and that is the reason why sometimes, even in a crowd, you feel utterly alone. This ache is like the soul of a flawless sculpture, placed on a pedestal in a magnificent museum. Under the spotlights, people pass by, marveling at its exquisite lines, its perfect proportions, and its external beauty. They discuss the artist's technique, the value of the marble from which it was carved. But if that sculpture could feel, if it had a spirit, it would know that all this praise only grazes its surface. It would sense that deep within its very structure there is a space, intentionally designed, a hollow chamber, reserved for something missing. A whisper resonates in its silent heart, an ancient message that it was born not merely to be admired as an object, but to become part of something far greater. That echo, my friend, is the first and final question of the human condition, the question that has haunted philosophers, poets, and ordinary people through all of history. What is my true purpose? Why am I here? We have tried to answer that question in 1,000 different ways. We throw ourselves into our work, believing that at the pinnacle of success, the echo will be silenced by the roar of applause. We build towers of achievement, hoping that from their heights we will finally see the meaning of it all. Yet, upon reaching the top, we find only a colder wind and a vacancy more profound than before. We search for the answer in relationships, giving our hearts away in the hope that another person's love will fill the void within us. And love is a beautiful thing, but we soon learn that no imperfect human can bear the sacred weight of becoming the meaning for another's existence. We search in the halls of knowledge, reading countless books, accumulating data, hoping that wisdom will illuminate the path. But knowledge tells us what and how. It rarely answers the fundamental why. We search in pleasure, in adventure, in novelty, trying to drown out the echo with the loud music of the world. But when the party is over, when the journey ends and silence returns, the echo rises again, clearer and more insistent than ever. Why is this so? Why do all our efforts seem so temporary, like trying to fill the ocean with handfuls of sand? Perhaps it is because we have been searching in the wrong place. We have been trying to find the answer from the masterpiece, when the true answer lies with the one who made it. Today, I invite you to set aside the tools of the world. Forget for a moment the definitions of success and happiness that society has pressed upon you. We will not seek our answer in lofty philosophies or hollow self-help formulas. We are going back to the very beginning, before the dawn of time itself, to the cosmic workshop, to hear the story from the artisan who crafted us. Prepare your soul for a journey of discovery, because the truth of your existence is more beautiful, more profound, and more astonishing than anything you have ever imagined. The answer to the echo in your soul is not a formula, it is a person. And he has been waiting to tell you this story for a very, very long time. Before there was a before time began its rhythmic pulse, before the first galaxies were woven from darkness and light, there was the artisan. He existed in a state of perfect completeness. His workshop had no walls, no limits. It was potentiality itself, the realm of eternity. Within him there was no lack, no loneliness, no need that had to be filled. He was a perfect symphony, a love complete and whole within his own being. Why then did he create? Why would such a perfect existence begin a project so vast and complex? The answer is as simple as it is profound. He created not because he needed to, but because of who he island. His very nature is love, and true love is never static. It overflows, it gives, it desires to share its own beauty and joy. The universe was born not from a need, but from a divine abundance of love. Imagine the artisan beginning his work. With a thought, he splashed brilliant clusters of light across the void, creating billions upon billions of stars, each a unique brushstroke. They were like golden dust scattered across an infinite black velvet canvas. He molded colossal masses of matter into planets, marbled spheres of color and size, each dancing to its own rhythm in the cosmic symphony. He designed the intricate yet harmonious laws of physics, the hidden rules that keep everything in perfect operational balance. He painted colorful nebulae like vast oil paintings, mysterious black holes like deep ink bloats. The entire cosmos was a breathtaking gallery, a testament to his power, his wisdom, and his extraordinary aesthetic sense. Every galaxy, every star sang a silent hymn of praise to the one who made them. Yet all of this majesty, all the grandeur of the universe, was merely the backdrop. It was the stage being set for an even more spectacular performance. For deep in the heart of the artisan, there was the idea for a unique and unparalleled masterpiece, a work of art unlike anything he had created before. Not a star, which can only shine. Not a planet, which can only follow its orbit. He yearned for a creation that could perceive beauty, that could look back upon his work and gasp in wonder. A creation that could think, that could choose, and most importantly, that could return the love of the artisan himself. A masterpiece that would not just passively reflect his glory, but actively participate in a relationship with him. And so, on a carefully prepared blue-green planet, at a special moment in time, the artisan began his most intimate work. He knelt and took the dust of the ground, not ordinary dirt, but the very essence of creation, the elements forged in the hearts of stars. He did not use a hammer or a chisel, the tools of distance. He used his own loving hands, feeling the texture of the material, shaping the form of man, Adam. Every detail, from the curve of the spine to the complexity of the brain, from the rhythm of the heart to the uniqueness of a fingerprint, was crafted with infinite care and affection. And when the physical form was complete, a beautiful but lifeless clay sculpture, the artisan did something unprecedented, an act of supreme intimacy. He leaned down, placed his mouth against the sculptures, and breathed his own breath into it, the breath of life, the breath of spirit, the very breath of God. Instantly, the clay form opened its eyes. Blood began to course through its veins. The heart beat its first rhythm. And in those eyes, for the first time in the history of the universe, the artisan saw a reflection of himself. Man had not just become a living creature. Man had become a living sculpture, a masterpiece infused with the very spirit of the Creator. What truly happened in that sacred moment when the artisan's breath filled the clay form? What is it that makes humanity, a tiny species on a humble planet, so unique among the vast and wondrous creations of the cosmos? The scriptures give us a phrase as mysterious as it is beautiful. We were made in the image of God. This is not a reference to physical appearance, for God is spirit, not bound by a material body. So what does this image mean? Think of it this way. When a master artist completes their most cherished work, they do not leave it anonymous. They leave a mark, an inimitable signature, something that says, "This is mine." It carries a part of me within it. The image of God is that divine fingerprint, the Creator's signature, pressed deeply into the very essence of our being, into every strand of our spiritual DNA. This fingerprint manifests in a multitude of miraculous ways. First, it is seen in our capacity for creativity. Look around you. Only human beings can take basic pigments and paint a masterpiece that stirs the soul. Only humans can arrange 7 musical notes into a symphony that can move listeners to tears or to ecstatic joy. We build cities, design complex machines, write timeless literature, and uncover the laws of the universe. This ability to imagine, to innovate, and to bring forth new things from what already exists is a small spark from the infinite fire of his own creativity. Every time you have a new idea, every time you solve a problem in a novel way, you are reflecting a tiny fraction of the mind of the one who designed the galaxies. Next, that fingerprint is our capacity for reason and moral consciousness. No other creature on earth lies awake at night pondering the meaning of existence, the difference between right and wrong, the nature of justice and mercy. A lion does not feel guilt for its kill. It acts on instinct. But we humans have an internal compass, a conscience that whispers within us. We have self-awareness, the ability to reflect on our own actions, to feel remorse, and to long for forgiveness. We can build complex legal systems based on principles of equity. This capacity to discern right from wrong and to aspire to what is good is a reflection of the artisan's own holy and righteous nature. The fingerprint is also our capacity for deep, meaningful relationships. Human beings were made for community. We crave connection, understanding, and belonging. We form friendships, romantic love, and families. We are capable of sacrificing our own interests for the good of another. This longing for communion is a reflection of the very being of the artisan himself. He is not a solitary deity, but a triune God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, existing in a perfect, eternal relationship of love. Therefore, when we love our families, when we are loyal to our friends, when we build healthy communities, we are mirroring the communal life of God Himself. And above all, the most crucial fingerprint, the crown jewel of our creation, is our capacity to love a conscious, chosen love that can be given and received. This is the core distinction. Human love, in its purest form, is not merely a survival instinct. It is a decision of the will. It is commitment. It is sacrifice. Animals act on instinct, but only a human can look into the eyes of an enemy and choose to forgive. Only a human can care for the elderly and the infirm with no benefit to themselves. This ability to love freely is the most direct reflection of the love of the artisan himself. He created us with this capacity not just so we could love one another, but primarily so that we could love him. He did not want to create robots programmed for obedience. He longed for sons and daughters who could freely choose to return his love. The original Garden of Eden was the setting for that perfect relationship. It was a place where the artisan and his masterpiece could walk together in the cool of the day, conversing as intimate friends. It was a relationship built on trust, freedom, and mutual affection. This was the original purpose, the beautiful intent of the Creator, to craft living sculptures bearing his fingerprint, capable of responding to his love and living in perfect harmony with him and with each other. How beautiful was the love story between the artisan and his masterpiece. In the Garden of Eden, harmony was the soundtrack to all of existence. There was no fear, no shame, no separation. Adam and Eve, the first 2 living sculptures, lived in complete and open communion with their Creator. Every sunrise was an invitation to discovery, every sunset an opportunity for intimate conversation with the artisan. They were given a noble task, to care for the garden, to steward the world as his loving representatives. Everything was perfect. It was a fragile perfection, however, for it was built on the foundation of freedom. And where there is the freedom to choose to love, there is also the freedom to choose not to. Then, a tragedy occurred. A dark chapter inserted itself into the perfect symphony. For in the garden there was not only the presence of the artisan and his creations. There was another presence, a shadow lurking, a whisper rising from a being once beautiful, but now twisted by pride. A voice, full of envy and deceit, approached Eve, and then Adam, not with force, but with a far more dangerous weapon, a seed of doubt. It did not deny the artisan's existence. No, it was more subtle. It attacked his very character, his goodness. Did God really say? It began. And then it planted the poisonous thought, a lie wrapped in the guise of enlightenment. The artisan is holding something back from you. He is afraid that when you eat the forbidden fruit, your eyes will be opened, and you will become like him, knowing good and evil. He doesn't want you to be truly free. It was a monstrous accusation. It painted a distorted portrait of the artisan, twisting him from a loving father into a selfish tyrant, fearful of competition, and in a tragic moment of weakness, of doubt, the masterpiece chose to believe the lie of a stranger over the love of the one who had formed it with his own hands. Adam and Eve reached out, took, and ate the fruit that the artisan had instructed them not to eat, the single symbol of their trust and obedience. That act, as simple as eating a piece of fruit, carried the weight of a rebellion. It was a declaration of independence, a statement that said, "I don't need you anymore. I want to decide for myself what is good and what is evil. I want to be the artisan of my own life." In that instant, a terrible tremor went through all of creation. A sickening crack echoed, not in the physical world, but in the spiritual realm. A fracture appeared on the gleaming surface of the masterpiece. That crack was sin. It was not a minor surface blemish that could be easily polished away. No, it was a structural fracture, running deep into the very core of human nature. It did more than mar the exterior. It burrowed deep inside, obscuring the Creator's fingerprint. Everything changed. Harmony became discord. Trust gave way to fear. For the first time, Adam and Eve felt naked and ashamed. They no longer looked at each other with eyes of innocent love, but with embarrassment and blame. And when they heard the familiar sound of the artisan walking in the garden, instead of running to greet him with joy, they hid themselves in terror among the trees. For the first time, the masterpiece hid from its maker. The separation had begun. That crack did not only affect the relationship between man and God, it spread in every direction. The relationship between humans was fractured, beginning with the blame game. The woman, "You put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree." The relationship between humanity and nature was broken. The ground would now yield thorns and thistles, and man would have to toil and sweat for his sustenance. And finally, man himself was fractured from within. A civil war began in the human soul, a struggle between the desire for good and the inclination toward evil. Death, an alien concept in the original garden, now became an inescapable destiny. The masterpiece had wounded itself, and it had no power to heal the wound. In the heavy silence that followed the rebellion, the Garden of Eden was no longer a paradise. The air was thick with sorrow and loss. The light itself seemed to have dimmed, and the symphony of life had acquired a mournful, minor key. As the artisan confronted his two trembling, hidden creations, his heart was filled with pain. This was not the anger of an offended monarch, but the anguish of a father rejected by the very children he adored. He saw his most cherished masterpiece, the work into which he had breathed his own spirit, now bearing the deep, ugly crack of betrayal and death. In his absolute holiness and justice, the artisan had every right to pass judgment. He could have shattered the flawed work back into dust and started over with a new lump of clay, a new creation incapable of betrayal. That, perhaps, is what justice demanded. That, perhaps, is what logic would do. But the artisan's love operates on a plane higher than worldly logic. His is not a love that discards something when it becomes imperfect, His is a steadfast, restorative love. Even in that darkest of moments, a plan was already taking shape in his eternal mind. A plan not of destruction, but of redemption. Amidst the wreckage of betrayal, the artisan did not remain silent in fury. After pronouncing the inevitable consequences of their wrong choice, pain, toil, and death, he turned to the serpent, the form the enemy had used to sow the lie. And there, he spoke a promise, a mysterious promise, wrapped in the language of a curse, yet containing the seed of grace. A promise etched into the very fabric of that first sunrise after the fall. He said, "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." To Adam and Eve, trembling in fear, these words may have been difficult to grasp. But to the entire cosmos, this was the first glimmer of hope, the opening shot in a divine war. It was a powerful message that this was not the end of the story. The fall was not the final chapter. The lie would not have the last word. The artisan declared that one day, someone would come, an offspring of the woman. This one would engage in a head-to-head confrontation with the power of darkness. He would be wounded in the conflict. His heel would be struck, a painful but not fatal injury, but in return he would deliver a decisive, mortal blow. He would crush the serpent's head. This was the first prophecy in the Bible of the coming Savior, a whisper of hope in a verdict of despair. The artisan would not allow his masterpiece to remain forever marred by the crack of brokenness. He would not simply stand at a distance and shout instructions for repair. No, his plan was far more audacious. He would personally intervene. This promise revealed that the solution to humanity's problem would not come from humanity itself. The masterpiece could not mend its own fracture. The solution had to come from the outside, from a source of superior power and love. And so, Adam and Eve were exiled from the garden. The gate to the immediate presence of the artisan was closed, but they did not leave in utter despair. They left with a fragile but burning promise in their hearts. The history of humanity from that point on became one long story of waiting, a story of imperfect people, bearing the crack of sin, yet looking to the horizon, anticipating the fulfillment of the promise etched in that dawn. The artisan had a plan of restoration so costly and so glorious it would stun both heaven and earth, a plan that went far beyond human comprehension, and that plan centered on one person, his own beloved Son. Thousands of long years unfolded after the promise was etched into the dawn of history. The crack in the human masterpiece seemed only to widen. Human history became a sad epic, written with wars, injustice, greed, and suffering. The Creator's fingerprint on humanity became increasingly obscured by layers of sin and forgetfulness. Men fashioned their own gods from wood and stone, worshipping the work of their own hands instead of the one who made them. They built mighty empires, only to watch them crumble into dust. They wrote sophisticated laws, but no law could change the human heart. The masterpiece seemed bent on its own self-destruction. Yet, throughout those dark centuries, the artisan was not silent. He continually renewed his promise through chosen individuals, the prophets. He painted an ever clearer portrait of the Redeemer who was to come. He said this: one would be born of a virgin. He would come from the line of King David. He would be a king, but his kingdom would not be of this world. He would be a priest, but he would offer himself as the sacrifice. He would be a suffering servant, despised and rejected by men, who would take up our infirmities and carry our sorrows. The promise grew more specific, yet also more paradoxical. How could one person be both a glorious king and a suffering servant? Then, at the precise moment appointed in the artisan's eternal plan, the unthinkable happened. The heavens did not part with the blast of angelic trumpets. The Redeemer did not descend on a chariot of fire. No, the greatest intervention in history began in the most silent and humble way imaginable. To restore a sculpture, an artist usually stands outside of it, applying tools to its surface. But our artisan did something radically different, something that speaks of a love so profound it looks like madness to the world. He chose to become a part of the art itself. Jesus Christ, the Son of the Artisan, who was with the Father from eternity, through whom all things were made, willingly set aside his heavenly glory. He voluntarily emptied himself of his divine prerogatives to step into the stream of human history. He did not arrive as a mighty emperor on a throne, surrounded by legions of angels. He arrived as a helpless infant, born in a dirty animal trough in an obscure corner of the Roman Empire. The Creator himself accepted the limitations of his creation. He grew up. He learned to walk and talk. He felt hunger, thirst, and fatigue. He laughed with his friends and wept at the grave of another. He experienced the joy of a wedding and the pain of betrayal. He lived among the broken masterpieces, and he loved them with a love that did not condemn, but that also did not compromise with the crack of sin. Jesus was the perfect template. His life showed us what humanity was always meant to be, a life lived in perfect obedience to and harmony with the artisan's will. In him, the Creator's fingerprint was displayed in its fullness, without any obscurity. He loved radically. He spoke truth with compassion. He healed the sick, fed the hungry, and welcomed the outcasts of society. Every word he spoke, every action he performed, was a perfect revelation of the artisan's character and heart. When people looked at Jesus, they were seeing God. As he himself said, "Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father." The incarnation, the artisan stepping into his art, is a profound mystery. It was the bridge built across the chasm that separated a holy God from a sinful humanity. He came to understand our brokenness from the inside, to walk our dusty roads, to experience our weakness. He did not come to fix us from a distance. He came near, so near that he became one of us, in order to begin the great work of restoration, not with divine power from on high, but with empathy and sacrificial love from within. Jesus lived a perfect life, but the primary purpose of his coming was not simply to be a moral example. A perfect example only highlights our own imperfections, which can lead to despair rather than hope. No, he came to deal with the root of the problem, the crack of sin that had corrupted the human masterpiece. But how does one mend a fracture caused by betrayal and death? No worldly glue could suffice. No religious ritual was powerful enough. No good deed performed by man could ever atone for it. A special material was needed, a divine adhesive, and the artisan, through Jesus, used the only substance, strong enough, pure enough, and precious enough, his own unconditional, sacrificial love, expressed through his very lifeblood. This journey of restoration led Jesus to Jerusalem, and ultimately to a hill called Golgotha. The cross, a brutal Roman instrument of execution, a symbol of agony, shame, and failure, became, in the marvelous plan of the artisan, his workbench. It was there that the greatest act of restoration in history took place. At that place, the perfect template, the only innocent one, voluntarily allowed sinful men to nail him to the wood. It was a horrific scene. Goodness crucified between two thieves, holiness mocked, love answered with hatred. The sky grew dark, as if creation itself could not bear to watch the tragedy unfold. But what was truly happening on that cross was far more profound than what the eye could see. It was not just physical agony, it was a divine transaction. Jesus, acting as the representative for all humanity, willingly placed himself over the very crack of our brokenness. He took upon himself all the ugliness, all the selfishness, all the lies, all the hatred, all the pain, and all the separation that sin had caused from Adam until the end of time. The fracture of humanity converged upon him. He who had never known sin became the embodiment of sin for our sake. The just wrath of the artisan against the masterpiece's rebellion, a wrath that we rightly deserved, was poured out in full upon his own beloved Son. He absorbed all the darkness into himself so that the light would have a chance to return. His cry from the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me?" was the cry of ultimate separation, the deepest agony a being can experience when cut off from its source of life. His death was not a tragic accident or a failure. It was the price. It was the moment the artisan used his own broken heart, his own infinite love, as the material to fill the void in the masterpiece. He mended the crack from the inside out with grace and forgiveness. When Jesus breathed his last and said, "It is finished," it meant the price of restoration had been paid in full. The debt of sin was cancelled. Justice was satisfied, and mercy was unleashed. The curtain in the temple, which symbolized the separation between God and man, was torn in two from top to bottom, signifying that the way back into the artisan's presence was now open to all who would believe. Love paid the price, and love had won. If our story ended at that cold, sealed tomb, it would be the greatest of tragedies. It would be the story of a good man who died unjustly, a story of a love that tried but was ultimately swallowed by the darkness of death. Jesus' disciples, who had witnessed his death, certainly thought so. They hid in a locked room, their hearts filled with fear and despair. Their hope was buried with their master. The perfect template seemed to have been destroyed. The crack seemed to have won. But the artisan had not yet finished his work. Death was not the final chisel stroke. 3 days later, at the dawn of the first day of the week, something miraculous happened, an event that shook the foundations of the cosmos and changed the course of history forever. There was a violent earthquake, and an angel descended from heaven, rolling back the stone from the entrance of the tomb. The Roman guards were so terrified they became like dead men. And when the faithful women arrived at the tomb to anoint their master's body, they found an unbelievable sight. The tomb was empty. Jesus was not there. He had risen, just as he had said. The resurrection of Jesus was not a mere resuscitation, as if he were simply revived from death. No, it was something far grander. It was the ultimate, glorious confirmation that the artisan's work of restoration was a complete and total success. Death, the final enemy, had been defeated. Sin, the cause of death, had lost its power. The resurrection was the artisan's seal of approval, his declaration to the entire universe that the sacrifice of his Son was accepted, and that victory belonged to the light. The crack was not just mended as one might glue a broken vase. No, through the resurrection, the artisan performed an even greater miracle. He transformed the very scar of brokenness into a symbol of grace and power. The masterpiece was now not only restored to its original beauty, it possessed a new depth, a new vitality, a new story to tell. It had become more alive than ever before. The resurrected Jesus appeared to his disciples, not as a ghost, but in a glorified body. He showed them the scars in his hands, feet, and side. These scars were not signs of failure, but trophies of love, eternal reminders of the price he paid to redeem us. He ate with them, talked with them, and gave them a new mission. Their fear turned to unspeakable joy. Their despair was replaced by a living hope. What does this resurrection mean for us, the masterpieces who still bear the marks of the crack? It means everything. Because Jesus rose, we too can be made alive. When we place our faith in him, the same power that brought him back from the dead begins to work in us. The divine breath that Adam lost in the garden is now restored to us through the Holy Spirit. We are born again, made new from the inside out. The crack of sin no longer defines us. We are completely forgiven. The separation from the artisan is over. We are adopted as his beloved children. Our purpose now, as those who believe in him, is not just to passively reflect the artisan's glory like a beautiful statue. Our purpose is to let the very resurrection life of Jesus flow out from within us. We are invited to become living, breathing, loving sculptures who carry within us the power to overcome sin and death. The resurrection is not just a historical event. It is a present reality, a divine energy that can transform our lives from a damaged masterpiece into a living testament to the restorative power of the artisan. A masterpiece so miraculously restored should not be hidden away in a dark corner. It must be displayed so that all can see and praise the skill and mercy of the artisan who did the work. And our artisan had a plan for the most unique gallery imaginable. It would not be a magnificent building of marble with strict rules and silent halls. No, his gallery would be built not of brick and mortar, but of living stones, the very people he had redeemed. That living gallery is the church. After Jesus ascended to heaven, he did not leave his followers as orphans. He sent the Holy Spirit, the very breath of the artisan, to dwell within the heart of every believer. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead was now living and active in the community of faith. They were no longer a scattered crowd of fearful individuals. They had become one body, one family, a new nation bound together by a divine thread. Each one of them, whether Jew or Gentile, slave or free, man or woman, was a living sculpture, carrying a unique story of restoration. One was once a rough block of hatred, now carved into a work of forgiveness. Another bore the deep crack of addiction, now sealed by grace. Another was stained by dishonesty, now polished by truth. When these masterpieces stood together, something wonderful happened. The beauty of one did not compete with another. Rather, it complemented it, enhancing the beauty of the whole. This gallery was not silent. It was filled with the sounds of joyful songs, heartfelt prayers, and testimonies of transformation. When one masterpiece wobbled, others would gather to support it. When one got dusty from the cares of life, others would help to wipe it clean. Together, they studied from the artisan's instruction manual, the Bible. They shared meals, joys, and tears together. They became a community of healing. The purpose of this gallery was not merely for its members to admire one another. Its primary purpose was for the world outside, a world still lost in darkness and brokenness, to look in and see the character of the artisan. Jesus had said, "By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." The love between the members of the gallery was to be the most compelling exhibit. In a world torn apart by race, politics, and social status, a community where people from all walks of life could genuinely love and accept one another was a miracle. When the world saw them serving the poor, caring for the sick, and forgiving those who hurt them, they weren't just seeing good deeds. They were seeing something supernatural. They were seeing a reflection, however faint, of the same sacrificial love the artisan had displayed on the cross. Each of us, with our different life stories, with our scars healed by His grace, is a work in progress. We are not yet perfect. We sometimes stumble. We sometimes let the old cracks threaten to reappear. But we are no longer alone in the struggle. We have each other, and more importantly, we have the presence of the artisan himself through the Holy Spirit in our midst, who continues the work of chiseling, polishing, and perfecting us. As we stand together, love one another, and serve one another, we form a living gallery. The world looks in and sees not just isolated individuals. They see a family, a body, held together by the grace of the same artisan. And through the way we treat each other, we tell the grand, hopeful story of the love that redeemed and restored us to all who are willing to listen. We have traveled on a long journey together from the cosmic workshop, through the garden of perfection, to the hill of brokenness, and finally, to the empty tomb of victory. We have seen the boundless love of the artisan, the tragedy of the sinful crack, the costly price of restoration, and the glorious power of the resurrection. So now, What does this grand cosmic story have to do with you, living in the 21st century, with your own unique anxieties, dreams, and pains? The answer is, it has everything to do with you. Because you are not an audience member watching an ancient play, you are a character in this story. So, why did God create you? He created you to be a living masterpiece, a poem of His grace, a one-of-a-kind sculpture in His universal gallery. You were not an accident. He knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. He knit you together wonderfully with a unique combination of gifts, passions, and even weaknesses. His plan for you was never that you would live a mundane life, merely existing from day to day before disappearing into nothingness. His plan was for you to live a full, purposeful life, a life that reflects His beauty and love to a world that is starving for it. The journey of your life, with all its twists and turns, its mountaintops and its deep valleys, takes place within the artisan's workshop. He is still working on you, even at this very moment. Perhaps you feel like a rough, uncarved block of stone, full of sharp edges and imperfections. Perhaps you look at the cracks in your past, the failures, the hurts, the wrong choices, and you think you are permanently damaged, beyond repair. But that is the enemy's lie. For our master artisan, no piece is unsalvageable. He is an expert at turning broken pieces into beautiful mosaics. He can use the very cracks in your life to let His grace shine through most brilliantly. Never think that your life is meaningless or that your small actions make no difference. Every morning you wake up is not just another day, it is another opportunity to cooperate with the artisan in his creative work. His workshop is now your home, your workplace, your relationships. Every time you choose a kind word over a harsh one, that is a stroke of the artisan's chisel softening a sharp edge. Every time you choose forgiveness over bitterness, He is mending a fissure in your soul. Every time you choose integrity in a world of deceit, He is polishing the masterpiece to reflect the light of truth. Every time you use your time, talent, or treasure to help another person, He is carving the lines of compassion onto your being. Your life, in His hands, is being gradually transformed, becoming more and more like the perfect template, Jesus Christ. This process is not always easy. Sometimes the artisan's chisel can be painful, as he needs to chip away the parts of us that are prideful, selfish, or fearful. But trust that He never causes pain without a purpose. Every chisel stroke is guided by infinite love and wisdom, with the ultimate goal of making you more beautiful. Your life is part of this grand story. Let the Creator's fingerprint be seen in you. Let the love that restored you shine through how you live. Your life is not a lifeless block of stone randomly thrown into the universe. You are a living sculpture, made to love by a loving artisan for a glorious purpose. And the good news is, His work in you is not yet finished. He who began a good work in you has promised to carry it on to completion until the day Christ Jesus returns. Trust His hands. Place your life, with all its beauty and all its brokenness, onto the artisan's workbench. Let Him continue to shape, polish, and perfect you. For that is the answer to the echo in your soul. That is your purpose for being.